I have said it before, and I will say it again. If you've got a 3D printer and you like board games, there is no reason for the fun to ever stop. Now, since the last time when I reviewed a bunch of 3D printed board games, I have added several more to my collection, and I want to share them with you today. And just like last time, I'm going to kind of grade them on three criteria. Are they fun to play? Do they have decent theming? And their shelf presence. That is to say, do they have a box that you can fit them all in, or at least a solution for storage? And does that solution for storage include space inside for the rules? But this time, there's an additional consideration on a couple of these games because some of these games are versions of games that you could buy commercially. And so the question for those games is going to be, should you 3D print them or should you just buy them? Shut the Box is a game for 1 to 4 players where each player has 2 dice and 10 tiles with the numbers 1 through 10 on them. On each player's turn, they roll their dice and then they can flip up tiles that equal the sum of the dice that they rolled. It's a game that's a little bit of luck, a little bit of strategy, and what's interesting about this game is if you're playing it with more than one player, each player is kind of playing the game independent of each other. You don't have to wait for the other player to finish their roll or finish turning up their tiles. You don't even have to wait for the entire game to be finished. Just move at your own pace. Try to do the best that you can. And then when everybody's done, compare your scores. Now there's two ways to win in Shut the Box. You can either be the one with the least tiles down, or you can be the one with the lowest score on the tiles. And whenever we play, we kind of like to score it both ways and see if we can get a split and have one player win one way, but another player win another. Now, Shut the Box is a game that you can buy. However, it's an old game. It goes back to the 12th century. We don't know who originally made it, and consequently, you can buy it from a variety of places. Most often made out of wood, but there are plastic versions. Now the version that I 3D printed was by JT Moto 84, and I really kind of enjoy this version because while it is large and big enough to put on a table and has room inside of it for the rules if you decide to print them up, it's also a relatively easy set to print. You can even change colors on the tiles to make it easy to see the numbers on them. And then when it's all done, you just slide a piece of filament through all of the tiles and then melt it down on either side to finish the build. And is this game fun to play? It is absolutely a blast to play. The fact that players don't have to wait for each other is a big plus and different from other games. But more than that, if you win on this game, it is a tense moment, especially if you get to the point where you can fully shut the box. It's a combination of luck and strategy, and when you win, you feel like, yeah, I'm a genius. But if you lose, you get to go, well, the dice just weren't with me. So you never really feel bad, but you get lots of opportunities to feel really good playing this game. However, as this is the first game that we have done that you could actually buy, the question becomes, should you print it or should you buy it? As this is an old game that you're not really taking any particular money out of any particular designer, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't print this one. It's not that difficult to print and it's a fun project to do. Plus you get the pride of having a classical game that you've made sitting on your shelf or on your table for other people to play that you get to go, I made that. And that feels good. Strike Arena is a game for 2 to 5 players, where players take turn throwing dice into the arena in an attempt to match faces that are already in there so that they can collect those dice. But if any dice rolls to an X, that dice is removed from the game permanently. If after throwing your dice in, you don't have any matches that you can take out, you can keep throwing dice in until you do or until you decide to pass your turn. It's a great push your luck strategy. Am I going to have a chance to collect those couple of dice in there? Maybe if I throw it in such a way that I hit that one, I can cause it to turn and improve my chances of getting a combination as well. If you run out of dice, you're out of the game. If you manage to clear all the dice out of the arena on your turn, the next person has to throw all of their dice in there at the beginning of the turn and just hope that they end up with a couple of pairs so that they can stay in the game themselves. The 3D printed version of Strike Arena is not that difficult to print. It's just the arena. However, you are going to need to have a clutch of dice to throw in there, which you could either do by just buying dice and then treating the 1 as the X, or I took the dice from Shut the Box, modified the 1 to be an X, and printed a whole bunch of them for my version of Strike Arena. Now, some people question the balance of a 3D printed dice, but why worry about that? Just print a sixth of them with this side up, a sixth of them with that side up, a sixth of them with that side up, so on and so forth. And okay, fine. They might not be balanced, but you won't be able to tell which one is favoring what side when you throw them. And this particular box does come with a lid, and there is just enough room inside of it that if you print the rules on a quarter size, not booklet size, but a quarter size print, and then cut off the corners, it just barely fits inside the lid there and will fit on the shelf like that. So okay, it gets full points for having room on there. However, again, it's lacking any branding on the outside. So on your shelf, you just see the side of the box. But how often is this going to sit on your shelf? Because this game is fun to play. However, Strike Arena is a game that you can buy. It is published by Ravensburg. And in fact, I went and got their rules to print them out for this particular version. So the question becomes, should you print it or should you buy it? Ravensburg is selling this in the US for only about $20, which is a reasonable price for an arena and a big handful of dice. So for this one, I say consider buying it before you print it out. However, grading the 3D printed version, I'm going to say the fact that they didn't include any dice and that I had to make them myself, or that you have to source the dice yourself, means that I'm going to give this particular version a B. Now, throughout this video, I'm going to be talking about making quarter-sized rule booklets, which, if you don't know how to do that, it's time for a mini tutorial. Now, if you have a 2D printer and a PDF, and you want to print out the rules, but you don't want to print them out on a full-size sheet of paper, most PDF readers have an option to print it in booklet mode, and booklet mode will make it so that it prints 2 pages per sheet on both sides, so 4 pages on one sheet, and then if you fold it over, you get a copy of the rules. But keep in mind, it's doing some shenanigans in there, because it's not just printing 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it has to print them 4, 1, 2, 3 in order for it to fold properly and have 1 on the front, 2 on the inside, and 4 on the back. However, if you'd like to be able to take this, cut these pages in half, and then fold them in half to make a quarter-size sheet, well, there's no ready option to do that, so you have to do it yourself. So here's how you do that. To begin with, you're going to need a sacrificial piece of paper, something you don't care about, maybe a failed print from a previous time that you save for, kids to draw on the back of or whatever. Take a terrible pair of scissors and roughly cut it in half. This does not have to be pretty because this is just an example. Put them both together, fold them in half in booklet form, and then just like a booklet, flip through the pages, but as you do, mark each page. So here we go, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4 and 5, page 6 and 7, and lastly, page 8. Then, take your sheets, lay them back out the way that you would normally look at them, and then go into your PDF printer, and when you hit print, tell it to put 4 per page, and then under the which pages to print, choose custom, and then type in the numbers that you see on your reference page. So I would type in 2, 7, 4, 5, then flip it over and keep going with 8, comma, 1, comma, 6, comma, 3. Be sure to use print on both sides when you do this, and then when you do, everything should be lined up nice and pretty. You can use a little paper cutter to do a more precise measure and cut. Take your pages, stack them up in the right order, fold them in half, and there you've got a quarter-size rule booklet. But what if your rule booklet has less than 8 pages? What if you have a rule booklet that only has 4 pages? Well, it starts with a similar process. Take your sacrificial piece of paper. This time you don't necessarily need to cut it, just fold it in half, put it like you would a booklet, and then start numbering pages. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Then when you go into your PDF program and hit print, what you will enter under custom pages is 2, 3, and then you need something to fill out the first page. Now I have tried putting 0 in for these. That doesn't work. I have tried putting, if it's a 4-page document, I've tried putting 5 in there. That doesn't work. You have to use a page of your document. Now, if there's a page that doesn't have a whole lot of information on it, that's probably the one you want to do. Maybe the cover is the one that you want to do, but you don't want to waste a whole lot of ink on this. So let's assume that page 4 actually just has a little bit of copyright information. Great. We'll put 4, 4. Then flip it over. 4, 1, and then you can stop. You don't need to fill out the rest of this page and you're good to go. Okay, but what if your booklet has more than 8 pages? Well, I suspect you have everything that you need to answer that right now. Just start with 2 pages of paper, roughly cut them in half in order to make your reference sheet, stick them together and fold them in half. And then start numbering your pages as many as you need. If you don't happen to need some of the ones in the middle to do this, throw them out and then be sure to fill the blank pages with some blankest page that you can when doing the printing. Using this technique, you can make quarter-size booklets for any amount of pages that you need. You'll save on paper, you'll save on space, and they'll work great in most 3D printed projects. Hive is a strategy game for 2 players by John Yanni, where players take turns placing tiles on the table next to each other to build the hive. On each turn, you cannot break up the hive, so if you place or move a tile in such a way that the hive would be in 2 pieces, even during the move, that's not legal. Each tile does have its own movement rules, meaning that people sometimes compare this game to chess. And while it does sometimes feel chess-like in its strategy, the fact that the game is being played essentially from the inside out and not from the outside in my mind, makes it almost an inversion of chess. This particular version of the game was made by G_W_, and G_W put a lot of effort into making a lot of versions of this that would make it as easy as possible for you to make. Do you want to change at layers to get the different colors? Do you want to use multicolor? It even comes with a box which holds all of the pieces and a couple of expansions that come with Hive. Yes, Hive has many expansions. It has expansions that were created officially and expansions that have been made by the community. Hive is a surprisingly popular game. However, GW's box doesn't have room inside of it for the rules even at a quarter sheet, which is a little bit difficult. Also, this version uses different icons than in the official version, meaning that if you find the rules and print them out, that they're not going to line up exactly. And it gets even more complicated because I could not find any copies of the rules that included how you move the expansion pieces as well. Now, I mentioned that Hive is a game that you could buy professionally, and it is published by Gen24. And it only costs about $20 for the base set that includes all of the individual pieces. And then it costs $10 for each expansion, which I should mention is just one more piece. So if you want the fully expanded game, you're going to need to get 3 expansions for it, which means the full version of Hive, if you buy it professionally, goes for about $50. And I'm not trying to be critical here. I understand that every step of producing a published professional game has people who are getting their hands into the pot. There's the publishers, there's the developers, there's the retailers, and everybody wants a cut. Meaning that a package that has nothing but 2 little pieces in it, yeah, is gonna cost $10. But it does seem odd to me that they don't sell the full set for a more reasonable price. Now, since it is actively being published and since you could buy it professionally, I'm not going to tell people that they should go ahead and print it. But I do understand why people might want to do that. Except maybe not this version of Hive. While I do appreciate the work that GW did on this version, I just ended up not being exactly what I wanted. I mean, for one, it doesn't have all the expansions, and it doesn't have a case that has room for the rules. Also, I would like a version of the rules that has all of the expansions in it, and I feel like I'm going to have to write those myself if we do that. What else? You know, it would be nice if instead of these icons, they had like dimensional bugs on there. Oh crud, I actually started working on this like before I even had a 3D printer, more than a decade ago. Maybe it's time I revisit that. Quoridor is a game for 2 to 4 players where players are attempting to cross the board. But on their moves, they can either move their pawn forward or place a wall on the board to hopefully block their opponent's progress to their side of the board as well. But this is not Quoridor, this is Quoridor Pac-Man Edition. Reskinning Quoridor as Pac-Man is one of those great ideas that is obvious in retrospect. Now, Pac-Man Quoridor adds a specific rule set that extends the gameplay with some new pieces, including a Pac-Man pawn, some power pellets, and the way you play is you lay out the board in a specific way, and then the Pac-Man character sits in the middle and tries to eat all of the power pellets before the ghosts that are controlled by 1 to 4 other players can trap Pac-Man and catch him. The thing about these alternate rules, though, is it's not Quoridor. It's Pac-Man for sure. It's a strategic Pac-Man game, but Quoridor involves building the maze, changing the maze, strategically trying to catch your opponent, and there's none of that in the Pac-Man gameplay. And to tell you the truth, the Pac-Man gameplay, it just isn't that fun. Even getting it out of your head that this is Quoridor, just thinking it's just an extra game that we get in the box. The game itself is just not a whole lot of fun to play. And I couldn't tell you why, but I didn't enjoy it. However, I do really enjoy playing Quoridor. And so if you look at this game and think, well, I'll just throw out the alternate gameplay version, you still have a good game in there, so I guess I can't dock it points for fun, since the fun is still there. And I want to mention that there is a fan-made rule set that's kind of a hybrid of Pac-Man and Quoridor that's out there if you wanted to try that one out. My problem is that that alternate rule set wasn't made in a square format, and so I'd have to reformat it myself if I wanted to add it to my rule set. Maybe I'll do that one day. Now, this 3D printed project was made by Don Poblete, and honestly, it's an excellent project all told. The ghosts are printed in 2 parts so that they can have little risers underneath them so that they look like they're floating like ghosts should. The board breaks down into 4 pieces so that it can fit inside the box. And yes, it has a box with decorations on the top. Now, it doesn't have much in the way of decorations on the side, but simply by changing colors at layers, which is the best way to do multicolor printing because it works with 3D printers that don't do color changing, but it also reduces the amount of waste to almost nothing. When I did that, I made a change at this layer to kind of represent the walls of the maze. And so even from the side, this particular box is going to look pretty good on my shelf. So while I think this 3D printed project is going to get high marks, we got to ask the question, shouldn't you just buy it? I mean, this is a commercially available game out there that you could buy for only about $20. I might recommend, instead of doing this 3D printed project, you should probably look into just buying a professional version of this game and give the money to the creators who made this game possible. Though I do want to praise Don Poblete for doing a fantastic 3D printed project. As a 3D printed project goes, this one's an A. Well, if you can believe it, this isn't even all of the board games that I've 3D printed and played recently. There are so many of them out there. However, I do think that that's a good place to leave it for this time. So we're going to stop there. But if you would like to see more 3D printed board games in the future, be sure to like this video and leave a comment letting me know what your favorite board game is and what other 3D printed board games I should check out. But that's going to be it for this video. I want to thank you very much for watching, and I want to remind you that you are a child of a loving Heavenly Father. He cares about you, and so do I. So take care of yourself, and if you can, someone else, because we all need each other. I'll see you next time.